Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome to the Wahoo City Council, Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. Announcement of the Open Meetings Act. A copy of the act is posted onto the east wall of the meeting room for public review. Next, we'll have the call to order. Roll call, please.
Stuart Krejci.
Here.
Shane Sweet.
Here.
Ryan Diaz.
Here.
Chris Raffle.
Here.
Patrick Nagel.
Here.
Carl Walker.
We have no proclamations, audience comments on items not listed on the agenda, not a lot of audience. Department head reports, I guess we'll start with.
Right. There's multiple department head reports in the packet. Cody was supposed to be here, but he called me late this afternoon and had some family things come up, so he'll try to be here at the next meeting or at least get a report submitted to you in the packet. As far as my report goes, it is included in the packet just as a late ad. Just a couple of things I want to go over with you. If you haven't heard, we did receive the PHMSA Pipeline Safety Grant Award, about $1.3 million, and that was awarded April 26th at the MUD office in Omaha. On May 2nd, here in this room, we held a Downtown Water Project Community Engagement Open House for 2 hours, and I think Brian was pretty happy with. We had about between 20 and 30 people attend to learn about the project and ask questions. We do have, if anyone ever questions you, we do have a large map hanging on the wall in City Hall, so it's easy to point things out to people when they come in if you know someone who has questions. On the community engagement side, utilities have been working with JEO, and I know they've been making social media posts, and they're developing a plan so that the communication about the project and the status of the project and where they're going next and so on and so forth will be being proactive in that. Again, as we've said before, this project is probably going to be painful simply because there's so many water lines that need to be improved, but it will be a solid thing for the downtown and will last us for many years to come. On May 8th, Teresa Klein and I met with Jeff Ray and some other staff members of JEO to work on the 2024 housing study. It was a kickoff meeting. This housing study is not something the city is paying for. Teresa went to Saunders County Board of Supervisors and got their agreement to participate in the cost of that because it is a benefit to them as well. I know that they helped Ashland with their housing study, so sort of a little tit for tat, right? You help Ashland, you help Wahoo as well.
And
but
what's the value of that study? You said it has no cost to us, but...
So in 2017, we actually paid to have a housing study done, and that is something that the developers have used, that we have used to support, like our CDBG grant application. It's very useful in that regard. I know a lot of like the workforce housing and some of the housing revenue that's being set aside, obligated by the legislature, has a housing study is necessary to help support some of those applications. But as we were going through this, through our 2017 study and sort of talking about things, when we started talking about the objectives, the goals and objectives that were laid out in that study and whether or not we've actually done what the plan said we should do, when we started rattling off all of the things, Teresa and I were like, dang, we've put in a lot of work, right? Yeah, there's between our infrastructure studies our master studies that the utilities have done, our annexation study, our economic impact study of the North Highlands, there's all of these things. I think also that the strategic planning session that was held by Greater Wahoo Development right when Teresa came on board about what her office priorities should be, and it was housing, housing, housing. That sort of helped change or drive some of the conversations, as well as having a utility manager who's very proactive and out in front of things instead of being behind the ball. So it was just really impressive. We did put together some numbers, and I'm not going to rain on the parade that will be coming when we present the study, but since 2017 through April 30th of 2024, we have had almost 149 new home permits, and that's in city limits as well as in our ETJ. There's about a third of them that are outside of city limits, but still 101 new homes in the last, 7 years is pretty impressive. So on May 9th, I got to sit in on and be an evaluator for UNO's MPA program capstone presentations, and it was Cody Brem actually got his MPA. I didn't get to hear his capstone presentation, but I participated in a couple others. But I was as a student in the UNO's program and having peers review my capstone, it was an opportunity for me to give back. So it was kind of a fun thing to sit on. We have completed CPR training for 4 sessions of about 12, so 55 people have gone through CPR training. And this morning, actually, Travis and I and Ryan met with JEO Investments on a pre-application meeting for a C3 PUD application on North Chestnut area, so that will be coming to you this summer. On projects, there's not a lot to report. Wilmer Ridge, I think we do have the final pay app on the agenda, but I will ask for you to include tabling that to the next one. I promise that I will have it finalized out at the next meeting. North Highlands Phase 2, most of the underground work by the contractor's been done, so now we'll be moving into natural gas and some of the electrical work prior to paving. The downtown stormwater study project, staff is going to be meeting with JEO to review the findings of that next week. So we should have that information for you, maybe in a presentation, maybe the first meeting in June. Other things you are probably all aware, Greater Wahoo Development Foundation issued an RFP for the redevelopment of the Casey's property at 12th and Chestnut, and there were no proposals received, so I think they're having conversations about alternatives. Maybe you've noticed all of our vehicles have been updated with the current decal, and in fact, it's so impressive that someone stopped Travis and Joe and was complaining about how many new vehicles the city had purchased, and we're just driving around in all these new vehicles. So it has, well, maybe they just got washed. And so anyway, I think it helps in our cohesiveness as an organization. If you haven't been made aware, Joe Wynn he did pass his street superintendent certification exam, so that's quite an accomplishment. 1 out of 4 that take it pass it, and so this was his first try, so very much kudos to him. And at our last meeting, you approved me submitting to NDEE the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant for street light improvements, converting some of our street lights to LEDs. About a week after I submitted that, I got an email back from them saying they had changed the max grant amount from $50,000 to $100,000, and that we had the opportunity to modify our grant application as long as we weren't changing what we were doing. And so we are intending to apply for the full $100,000 with about an additional $10,000 of city resources plus the labor to do the installation, and then that would get all of our street lights converted to LED. We have, you'll see some numbers in, 607 lights in our system, 114 of them are metered, the rest of them are unmetered, and so we just use the energy use calculation on a 12-hour day times 365 days a year to pay for the electricity that those use. And there's since 2014, we've been changing them out as the high-pressure sodium ones are going bad. We've done a little bit more in some of the areas in terms of changing out, but this, if we were successful in getting the 100,000, this would take us all the way through and we would be finished with that conversion. So
When do we find out? 6 months, a year?
I think it will be later this summer. They're usually we've used this grant in the past for the upgrade to the HVAC system at City Hall, and they're usually pretty quick in turning around the grant
Nice.
responses. So. Any questions?
All right, so that is our department head reports. We'll move on to the consent agenda. We've got 6 items: acceptance of excused absence, approval of last meeting's minutes for the council, approval of minutes for planning commission, approval of mayor's appointment of Carly Jonas for the library board, final pay applications for Wilmer Ridge, which you were asking us to table.
Yeah.
And then approval of claims. I went through the claims, nothing unusual about that. Any questions, concerns? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion, including the tabling of the Wilmer Ridge final pay.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second. Roll call.
Rappel,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Frazier.
Yes. We have a public hearing and potential consideration of a resolution to declare the area blighted and substandard. So I will open the public hearing on 2024 downtown blight and substandard study. And please announce
Good
your
evening,
presence,
Council. My name is Jeff Ray with JEO Consulting. I am out of the Omaha office, so want my address?
Jeff. No.
Okay. It's like everybody does got to have my address. I'm Broken Bow. They made sure I had my address. I'm like, all right, here's my address. I have a presentation before you to go through that for your information, a little bit of background as well. Why we do a blight study? Why do we have this ugly name? What's advantage to you as a city to do that? Not only for you, but for the public as well. So, real quick, what is a blight study? So, a blight study is authorized under the Nebraska Community Development Law. It took an amendment to the Nebraska Constitution to allow this to happen in the early 70s, and has continued to be tweaked pretty much every year from the legislature. So that is your authority to declare an area blighted and substandard, which ultimately really gets you to one of two things. You can get the area declared blighted substandard. You can now then entertain the use of tax increment financing, if that's the route you want to choose. Or, in this particular case, when you're in downtown, you could also be eligible for a community development block grant for downtown revitalization. The only other way you're able to get a CDBG for downtown revitalization would be if you were a low to moderate income, which the community does not qualify for. So that's really what you do. The process, if you want to go through it, you declare an area blighted substandard. You would do a redevelopment plan for TIF. If you wanted to do that, that's going to be a contract ultimately that comes back before you with the developer that would say, with the economic analysis, say, but for tax increment financing, I can't afford to do this project. But with that, I could, and here's what I want to pay for this TIF. And you go through the eligible expenses and the projections of cost, and you could potentially do that. And you've done several projects. With that, what's actually in a blight and substandard study then? So the criteria, there's a summary of the criteria then for blighting that the state legislature made. I didn't make these up. Substantial number of deteriorating structures, there's unsanitary conditions, the deterioration of site or other improvements. There's either stable or decreasing population over the last 3 decennial censuses. There's economic and social liability that's detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare. There's a diversity of ownership, improper subdivision or obsolete platting. Half of the unimproved property has been inside the city limits and unimproved for 40 years. There's a high density of population overcrowding, and or there's special tax assessment delinquencies greater than the fair market value. That's a summary of the criteria of blighting. You don't have to have a certain number. We'll go through this of where they are and what our analysis is of those blighting characteristics, as well as the criteria that are listed as the substandard characteristics. By the way, the photos all in here are from downtown Wahoo. So the criteria for substandard are very similar. Dilapidation, deterioration, age, or obsolescence of structures, dangerous conditions to life or property due to fire or other such causes, inadequate provision for light, air, ventilation, open space, and sanitation, defective, unusual conditions of title, unemployment that equals 120% of the national average, and or the per capita income is less than the citywide average.
So question, on some of these seems very hard to pin down, subjective. Who gets to decide how these?
You do.
This is why we're here.
This is why we're here.
Okay.
So in the study was analysis of what those characteristics were. We used a GIS coding system and stayed on public property and obviously viewed everything only that's physically above ground. We didn't look at the underground infrastructure. Did an analysis of all of that, did an evaluation of that based off of these criteria. Took photographs to kind of document where some of those are. They're all shown in the photo appendices to the study. We also used assessor data from Saunders County for number of owners in this district, the tax valuations, and looking at that to see are they truly fair or something there. Looked to see if there were some ownership issues. Also looked at the age of structures and if it's greater than 40 years of age. So those are the combination of all of that analysis. And then we put that all into the GIS system and the mapping system, and that's what the report, ultimately the study, looks at. And that's where we were summarizing that.
Thank you.
So the study area, often get asked, why is this property in versus that property out? So this is obviously a subjective area that usually starts with the conversation with the city. What area do you want to study? That's usually what it comes down to. We look at it and say, okay, does this seem reasonable? Should some of this come in or out maybe? So here in this particular case, it's also identical to this previous study that you have done. You've already declared this area blighted substandard, but it is 20 years of age, I believe. So to be eligible for the CDBG, you need to be less than 10 years of age. So it was time that you came back and looked at it and said, hey, are these criteria still present or not? So we snapped to boundary lines. We don't want to bisect any parcels. We also just did a quick drive-through, say, does it look like there's characteristics of blight in this area or not? Is there a whole bunch of new development, that type of thing? Again, you're eligible for downtown revitalization grant. And then is there potential for anything to even happen in this area? If we felt that there wasn't and everything was new, then it probably would make sense to study it because you are limited to 50% of your total area of your corporate limits.
Question, why is the baseball diamond in this area?
It was included in that area originally with the park and the baseball diamond and the aquatic center. All of that area was originally included. If it is included in there and there's a TIF project that happens in that general vicinity and the development that doesn't need TIF or doesn't want to use all of that TIF, you could do improvements to the public amenities that benefit everything within the district, but you couldn't use TIF outside of that district. So an example of that would maybe be the city of Utan. They use TIF in their ITAN subdivision, which is in the northeast corner of the community. They use that to pay for mostly the roads and the youth infrastructure development. However, the first road was already built, so all of the TIF captured off of that first road for those houses went to pay for the new splash pad in that district, which is adjacent to those new homes. So it was an amenity to the public in using the tax increment financing. So there are reasons sometimes why you want to include public parks in particular in that area. And it was in there previously.
Does that make sense, Shane?
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not going to pay taxes on that part or anything. So we get into the analysis and findings. As I mentioned, we do a structural rating. We look at this. So the way to think about it is we use the HUD standards. if the typical homeowner would need to hire a contractor to do new windows, doors, tuck pointing, those types of things, that would put you into that deterioration or dilapidation category. If it's simply something that a normal homeowner would cover under their maintenance, then it would not be. So we went through, we did an analysis. As you can see, the dots on the left side of that map all represent that. If they are green, it means they were good. If they were yellow, means they were listed as no problems. Orange meant they were deteriorating, and red meant that they were deemed to be dilapidated. So the 73% of those structures, and were the primary structures, we didn't really worry about the accessory structures, were deemed to be in the deteriorating or dilapidated category, which is not unusual for a downtown. We also looked at transportation, meaning the streets as well as the sidewalks. As you know, the streets are the first area really to start conveying your stormwater drainage. So looking at all of that, there were areas with unpaved streets, some what we call it alligator cracking on the pavement. It looks like alligator skin when it breaks up into those chunks. Areas where the pavement has deteriorated and been removed. Areas of broken curb, lack of sidewalks, in some areas missing ADA ramps in several areas as well. And then some areas where we have what we refer to as bird baths. In other words, they're depressions that don't drain properly and retain the water. So those were kind of found throughout. You can see on the map on the lower area, areas that were rated as, most of the streets were rated as poor or fair, and a few of them that were good. Next item we looked at was the lot layouts. In your printout, you can see there's a bunch of little red arrows. It's not actually the one on the screen. So there's some areas where there's some really weird shaped lots. In fact, probably the most unusual one that I've ever seen right there on 6th and Broadway. I have no idea. Does anybody know why that was cut that way? It's right through the middle of a building.
Is that,
North there, right? Oh, right.
I can't
Right
see, there's a
there.
glare.
is that the,
Right. There you go, right there.
is that
There's-
the bar and
Oh.
Mexican
It looks like
restaurant?
one building from the outside, but I don't know if they're falling interior walls or what, but it's a,
It's a newspaper building.
It's the old
I think
newspaper,
it's
it's the bar, and it used to be the Mexican restaurant, now it's JC's.
okay.
Yeah, because of the
The ownership.
restroom and the restroom belonged with.
Yeah. So that was a pretty unusual one, and I've done a couple hundred of these, so
Who made that
Sell
visual
off
description?
half the building to-
I don't think I've ever seen one quite that crazy. The surveyor had fun doing that one. There is a landlocked lot to the west there, half a block. There are several L-shaped lots. There's many that are very narrow in that 22, 25-foot range, which really don't meet current modern standards. Those are what we refer to as obsolete. The improper, obviously, would be the landlocked. And then some buildings actually cross property lines, which prior to really getting zoning and subdivision regulations into place was common, but it's another illustration of the lot's not the proper size for that particular building. Deterioration of site. Again, here's a picture. You can see where you got some of that alligatoring going on the paving. Some drainage issues, areas of many of the buildings that needed tuck pointing. I didn't just drive the streets. I spent many a time hanging out in the alley. That's what I do when I write blight studies. Alleys tend to show the true character of what those buildings are, because people will fix up a little bit on the front, but not necessarily the true character of the building from the rear. So you can see a lot more back there. So you'll see there's several pictures from the alleys. Then we looked at potential unsafe conditions. There were areas where there were debris piles, either wood and or construction debris or junked cars that can create unsafe hazards or harbor vermin and pests. There's areas of used tires that have been stacked that collect water, and mosquitoes can breed and so forth. Those were some of the areas that we identified. Then on the sidewalks, we noted that there would be some tripping hazards. There's a little bit of floodplain. The age of structures is another potential, simply because prior to 1978, many of these structures probably had lead paint in them, and we were able to use that prior to that. There were a couple areas that had overgrown brush, particularly in the alley areas, that was noted as well. So those were some of the potential unsafe conditions. You can see from the picture there. Then the age of structure. Again, the legislature said 40 years of age. Your commercial structures average to be 115, so well beyond the 40, and then 105 for the residential. It is one or the other, but both of them do qualify. Again, this was based off of the Saunders County's assessor records. We didn't just simply guess at how the age of the building. So when we turn on all the layers that we have, to say, where are these characteristics? Have we included an area that doesn't include blighted characteristics or substandard characteristics? As you can see, almost every parcel had at least one characteristic. Some of them, even like your new bank building, but yet there were still some sidewalks or alleys or roads that were adjacent to it that still caused those parcels to still qualify under some of those blighting and substandard characteristics. So overall, it is our recommendation that you would declare the area blighted and substandard. The Planning Commission also gave a unanimous recommendation to declare the area blighted and substandard. We found that 10 of the 12 characteristics were blighting were prevalent throughout the district, and 3 of the 4 substandard characteristics, or a total of 13 of the 16 criteria under the state statute, were found to be prevalent throughout the district. With that, I will take any questions you have.
I guess I'm looking at this saying, well, this is like a report card of us. I mean, these things are nuisances, these things are streets. Some of this stuff, we've had 20 years to fix this, and we haven't. Is that a fair statement?
Some, yes, but much of it is private as well. So we looked at both public utilities and infrastructure, as well as the private improvements and structures. So it's a combination.
But moving forward, that designation I'm fine with, but I guess I'm looking at some of this stuff just for the health of our downtown. I think we've got our list of things we need to focus on for nuisances and street repairs when we have the money to do it. But
Yeah, and hopefully you get some economic development tools to help you do some of those.
yeah. Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments? We're open our public meeting or public hearing. Motion to close the public hearing?
There we go.
Are you officially motioning to close the public?
Well, I'm seeing if someone
I will
wants
make
to.
that motion to
I
close.
figured I was gonna
I'll
abstain
second.
from motions while I'm sitting in this chair, so.
Who's seconding?
I did.
So we have a motion and a second, so roll call for the close the public hearing.
Rappel?
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Nagel?
Yes.
Sweet?
Yes.
Krejci?
Yes. So with that, we can consider a resolution to declare the area blighted and substandard, and it looks like this is a continuation of something we did, what, 20
Continuation
years
is the way I
ago?
look at it too.
Yeah.
Just an update.
Yeah, it's this resolution.
I would make the motion to approve the resolution.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second. Is this one for 3 readings?
No,
No,
Yeah,
it's a
so we
resolution.
can just move forward, can't we? All right, so we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Ideas?
Yes.
Nagel?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Sweet?
Yes.
Krejci?
Yes. All right, moving on. Authorization for mayor to sign a memorandum of understanding with Saunders Medical Center regarding the use of Wahoo Busy Wheels vehicle in emergency or catastrophic situations. That seems relatively straightforward, and
yeah, if you have any questions, I can
And they.
I think Saunders Medical Center is in the process of sort of just tightening up some of the things that they assumed they would be able to do, and so Joven did review this, made a few changes, and so it wouldn't give them the ability to use our vehicle if we needed it, but in the event that we didn't, they would have.
So number 5 is the freebie verbiage,
Yeah.
non-binding.
Yeah, yeah, either a letter of intent or memorandum of understanding.
So you're good with it?
I am.
So
I'd make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the MOU.
I'll second that.
So motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Ideas?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Sweet?
Yes.
Nagel?
Yes.
Krejci?
Yes. Number 2, approval of purchase of tractor for street department. Joe's not even here to explain it.
No, and I think that what you saw in this quote is exactly what he reviewed with you previously. There is money in the budget for him to purchase this, and I know that he would appreciate moving forward with this. I know that he did his research and got several.
So then,
Bids,
the
yeah.
existing one we'll be keeping it or trading it or selling it on our own, or to be determined, I guess.
I think it's to be determined. We've had a lot of luck listing our equipment with
Yeah. But it's not part of this
Sanderson, but it's not
transaction.
part of this transaction.
Okay.
Essentially, last meeting, he said he was wanting to move forward with, and had a couple other options, and now he's dialed it in and found.
Yes,
it.
right.
Yeah,
Found a
Yep.
good one, looks like.
Yeah, I would say so. I'd make a motion to approve the purchase.
Second that.
So motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Ideas?
Yes.
Sweet?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Nagel?
Yes.
Krejci?
Yes. And number 3, approval of interlocal agreement with various municipalities to provide for mosquito control. We do this every year, don't we?
Yeah, we're not sure which of these communities will come forward and ask, but we would like to approve the blanket agreement and give the mayor the authority to sign them when they come in.
And that's the
different-
same price, or is the price gone up?
Same this year as last year. It
Okay.
went up last year from the year before, but Joe.
Okay,
So far, Soresco, Cedar Bluffs, Prague, and Meade have all responded and are going to move forward, take it to their councils.
and last year we probably had everybody, or did we have a few abstain out of this?
The only one I don't know for sure is if Valparaiso did, but outside
Okay.
of that, I think everyone else did.
Okay,
I don't think we did a lot of mosquito spraying last year.
No,
It was
we
very
did-
So dry that.
Yeah.
Pretty dry in May.
Yeah.
and just curiosity, I mean, the chemical
this
we're
year,
spraying,
yeah.
do we get like a hold harmless or something from these guys, so they don't come back and sue us and said we're spraying poison on them 20 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's an actual contract that pertains to this particular agreement, and, you know, we arguably have sovereign immunity as it relates to it, because it's a discretionary function of the city
That's municipal.
for that, so
Okay.
I think we're likely protected anyways. If we were doing this on a very extensive basis and we're trying to pass on significant profits, that sort of thing, I think we absolutely would want an
Okay.
actual written agreement and contract with all that kind of verbiage in it, but for what I think is being described here, it may not
Pretty
be
nominal.
necessary, yeah.
Last year, Joe came up with a kind of fact sheet about the chemical that we use, and that got sent along with
Nice,
the
okay.
agreements. So they know
Okay.
what it is that is being
It's
used.
good to know, all right.
In addition, any one of the guys who goes out and applies or sprays it has to go through a certification and holds an applicator's license through the state of Nebraska. And every year, our machine has to go through a certification to make sure that the size of droplet is the size it's supposed to be, so it's applying it accurately
All right. And
at
then
the
it's
right
just
concentration.
viewed as an as-needed basis, or
Yes.
some calendar date to go out and do it? Or-
Yes,
Yeah.
basically. Soresco tends to ask for it a little more often than the other communities, but they have that creek that kind of runs right through their town, so
Okay.
that, and with Soresco days and whatnot. But yeah, I think there's one that they kind of just go around and spray everybody, and then after that they call Joe and say,
Okay.
it's pretty bad.
We're ready, yeah.
Alrighty, what's your, any ideas on what you guys would like to do?
I move to approve.
Second.
Local agreement.
Okay, motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Ideas?
Yes.
Nagel?
Yes.
Sweet?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Creachy?
Yes. Okay, now we are down to number 4, approval of resolution 2024-03 to authorize the city's participation in Saunders County Mutual Finance Organization and to indicate our intent to allocate 4 cents of the levy to the fire department of the city. And this is something we have done for a long time.
Probably 15 years, yes. In return for our commitment to 4 cents of our levy going to the fire department, we received funding through the Mutual Finance Organization of Saunders County that equates to approximately, $30,000 roughly each year.
It's not quite a wash then, our 4 cents is more than their 30,000, but
Right, our 4 cents equates to, I'm thinking, now you're catching me off guard. I think it's a little over 100,000.
okay.
So when our valuation goes up, that 4 cents goes up
Yes.
directly, which is just something to keep in mind too. They end up, if we don't go up, take our full amount of levy, the fire department's allocation is more than what other departments are, if that makes sense. Am I making sense?
I think so.
What?
I think so.
Well, yeah, if our levy goes down
Right.
because our valuation went up, which is what we're supposed to be doing, the fire department is still getting 4 cents.
Yes.
So their levy is directly responsive to the valuation changes, yeah.
Yeah, that seems to have worked out well for quite a period of time. So,
Because of that, I'd say, make a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll second that.
motion and a second, roll call, please.
Ideas?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Nagel?
Yes.
Sweet?
Yes.
Creachy?
Yes. Council comments on items not listed on the agenda?
I do have a comment. I drive around town here lately, and this may sound more like a complaint or not. I don't know for sure what our resolution is on this, or, you know, if we already have something in place, but, you know, some of these businesses around town are not mowing, and it just looks like total crap, if you ask me. I'll use an example right there on First and Chestnut, that Elite Exteriors building.
Yeah.
That one's looking shaggy, I just saw that one last
But
night.
I mean, there's probably a handful of businesses around
Mhm.
town that have not done anything, and there's gotta be something. And even some houses, I know it's the same people that have had it for the last few years. I mean, something, I think we need to
So-
take some type of action to make sure that these people are keeping this property up, because especially like that, you know, First and Chestnut, I mean, that's, people that come in from
First
that
thing you
direction,
see.
that's the first thing they see in our town. It makes our town look like trash. I just,
Right, it doesn't give a very good first impression, or along Chestnut Street. So I know Christina and Travis have spent quite a lot of time working on nuisances and a little bit of trying to refine the nuisance process to make it more responsive. Honestly and truly, what I would really like to have the authority to do is take a big old sign that's yellow with big black letters and set it in someone's yard that says, this property is a nuisance. I mean, it's very definitive on the grass mowing. You know, if it's over 12 inches, it's a nuisance by our definition. But we don't have that authority at this point, so
Yeah.
we go through the process of sending the letters and trying to make calls when we can. It's a process, and everyone who has gotten a nuisance notice knows that process, and so sometimes they circumvent, right, the process so that they can not be on notice and such. But it is, yes, we experience your frustration as well.
well, I'm just, I mean, again, picking on it, but that Elite Exteriors, I am serious, it would take 2 minutes to mow that entire freaking lot.
Yeah.
What is the issue?
And I think,
don't get it.
I guess my thought process is that we're definitely going through our process and following up on those, but a lot of times, in my opinion, it takes peer pressure.
So we need to find somebody that, you know, doesn't mind getting in trouble on Facebook and go after these people.
Or-
You know, if we see something, yeah, we need to say something. I know our empty grocery store is horrible, and the loading dock was almost full of rainwater, and it's pretty well pumped out now.
It's
And
pretty
he mo-
unsafe
he
with
mowed
it.
today.
Good.
So it does make a difference if you say something. So
Yeah, and to Melissa's point, part of the problem in my mind is legislative, which is you have a standard nuisance process statutorily for everything, whether it's on the extreme end or simply they have 12 inches of grass, right? And you have to follow that process irrespective, which requires all sorts of notice and hoops to jump through.
Certified letters.
Yeah, and it just becomes a bit of a nightmare, and it's not something when you're talking about grass that's growing while you're doing that, you know, that resolves in you being able to address it the next day or otherwise. I mean, it'd be nice if there was some sort of an expedited process, but our process follows state statute, and there's not really a mechanism we can do to say,
Yeah.
we're gonna create a different process for it. So it's, other than doing what the staff's obviously doing and identifying them, right? Because that's, a lot of times that's the hardest thing, of getting out each block and figuring out where the complaints are and issues are so they can send the letters.
But I would estimate, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think for every nuisance notice that we send out, by the time we receive the complaint or we identify the complaint, we go out and review it. Yes, it's a nuisance. We put together the letter, we send it in the mail. We have at least an hour of someone's staff time, plus then the cost of mailing, right?
Which is
So
not
we're talking,
cheap anymore.
Yeah.
we're talking at least $50 for every nuisance. So, like, I could tell you how Travis feels about it, but I probably shouldn't say that in an open meeting.
yeah, but when you see these things happening, and then here we just get done talking about, you know, all
Yes,
the
exactly,
glory pictures
right.
in here that, you know, the unmowed lot turns into some of this stuff eventually. You
There-
want to try to get ahead of it.
Right, and there are responsibilities that go along with
With
lot ownership, not just
Yeah.
renting the property out and receiving the paycheck,
Well, could there
right?
be some monetary fines or something? I know you said we follow the state statute, but have we had the city ordinance that if you get, you know, 2 of these nuisance letters in a year, the second time you're gonna be fined X amount of dollars or
I
something?
can,
Well, if we
Like
go
that,
mow
to
it,
try
I
to
can tell you in Omaha for their sidewalk snow removal, it's not a process of where you're mailing letters. You're walking out there, and if there's a complaint, we go look at it. A door hanger gets put on the door with the letter stating what the ordinance requires, and then we go back 24 hours later, reevaluate. If it's still not clean, we get our contractor lined up, and they come out the third day, and they take care of it the third day. And we take photographs of it, measure it, and then they do it, and we take photographs after, and then we send them a bill. Here's how much it costs for us to clear the sidewalk. Thank you very
Now,
much.
the question
Pay
is,
us.
how many of those bills get cleared?
All of them, because they either pay them or they get assessed against the property. The
You
county
wait, you
ends
may
up
wait,
taking-
but you'll get paid someday.
Someday, sometime in that year, you're gonna get paid either by them or by the county assessing it against their property. I don't know, is that something we could look at on these nuisances instead of mailing?
Provide for personal service. I think the reason it doesn't typically happen with second-class cities is they don't have the staffing to do it, right?
No.
Yeah. But
We will, our regulations do allow for, if we know there's those individuals that, you know, are gonna shirk getting their mail or, right, we will send our police department out with personal service, but obviously that's not their
Needs some-
highest priority, right?
They have to
They-
have the
Need
cost
some summer
associated with that
interns
too.
to help with that.
What's
The
that?
cost associated with that too. 'Cause now we got
Absolutely,
our police
yes.
department doing
Right.
other things than what they normally do.
Yeah,
So we need some summer interns that could help out on that end of it.
Yeah, great experience.
I'm not sure
that's a role you want.
I'm sure they'll pick going into local government after that, right?
I mean, you just walk up, you put the hanger on the door.
Maybe
you
not,
walk
but
away.
they'll have a mowed
Hey,
yard.
photograph it and leave.
Yeah,
I
you're
gave you-
allowed
I
to do
gave you
constructive
notice.
service, which is not physically handing it to the individual, but rather placing on it. But to your point, you have to have processes in place because you have to be able to prove you effectually.
Here's a notice hanging on your door, you take a photo, if it's here, you leave, you come back, you document what they haven't done, if it's not done, and then you document after the fact that it's been done, and then it's like, okay, we did our due diligence, we informed you, we gave you time to correct it, you didn't correct it, we're now correcting
I'm
it.
just looking at the time you're just talking about.
It's
right
what's
there.
what Melissa
Meter's
said. You
running.
have time
Wow.
into.
You gotta do it though.
I mean,
Yeah.
It
but
is
it's a
something
big
that
process.
I've kind of taken on to review as far as like, has there been any updates to state statute? Can we expedite our nuisance process a little faster? Because right now it's probably realistically 3 weeks between it being notified and it getting taken care of one way or the other. So if you get a yard to a place where you feel like you need to make that comment and then add 3 weeks to it,
Yeah.
you know, so that is something that I'm currently working on. I actually hope to have something to Joven to look at here still in the next week
I was
or
just saying, if
so.
there's frequent, violators, that
Right.
there
I
ought
was gonna say, I would
to be,
think
there
that-
ought to be something, some
Well,
kind of
that's the
red.
other thing. If you had more than one time that the in Omaha cleared sidewalk, the second offense tax on a $100 fine, the third offense tax on a $500 fine on top of it. So, and that stays on there for consecutive 36-month window. So it doesn't go away the next winter. It carries over if you had it done the year before and then you had it done again. And so that it's their way to try to incentivize people to follow the rules and do what they're supposed to do.
I would have to think your repeat offenders are the majority.
Yeah,
I do typically send a letter to the same handful of addresses every year.
That's a shame. Okay. And those great comments.
I do have a comment, and it goes back to the comments from the city yesterday that coincided with the brush pile cleanup. There was a question asked by somebody, what about the commercial tree removal services? Are they being charged? And I thought that the follow-up answer that the city provided was very, very good.
yes.
It offered insight that I wasn't aware of, and I think it was very clear. So I appreciate that follow-up post.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. That was very good.
Yeah.
That was very good.
I think that is something
I've been
we
asked that-
absolutely need to do a better job at, is educating why we do things the way that we do them, right?
I think with your answer, it did answer that specific question for that person, but also then it shared it with me. I mean, now I know, and,
Right,
and I
yeah.
can speak to it. I've been asked that question, actually, so that was very, very good.
Yeah, I love those updates like that. I always paste them forward about
Yeah,
share
for
them
sure.
too, so
Well,
try and
I
reach
will
as
say
many people as
this.
you can.
If you have a specific question that you think we need to address, send it my way and I will say, hey, did you know? Or today's fact of the, or the fact
And
of the
actually,
week or whatever.
and your
yeah.
delivery was very, very good. It was detailed, but yet explained without getting too far in the weeds, and it was good. I appreciate it.
Thank
So
you.
Mhm.
I think that others can learn from that as well. So. And like I said, it just gives us a better tool to be educated to answer that exact question later.
We should actually take those questions and put them on a FAQ on our website so that they're not lost on social media. Yeah.
All right. Great discussion. Anything else? All righty.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Yep. Second.
All right.
Good.
We're good. Not too bad a time, you know.
All in favor?